Uh-oh. Motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Jack Catterall joins Bozy Ennis' stable, Philadelphia bound for training camp. Former World Junior Welterweight title challenger Catterall announced his split from longtime coaches Jamie Moore and Nigel Travis earlier this month, and now has a new home. After a successful trial period stateside earlier this year, the 32-year-old has decided to go all in and will travel 3,400 miles away from his chorley comforts to work under highly rated coach Bozy Ennis. The Ring understands this past Thursday, Jack flew to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to head straight into training camp alongside Jaron Ennis ahead of the Brits matchup with Echo Essuman on the undercard of Eubank Jr. vs. Ben 2. Ennis, 34-0 with 30 KOs and 1 no contest, is finishing the final preparations on his own camp as the former ring and unified welterweight champion makes his junior middleweight debut against Angola's bullish Lima, 14-1 with 10 knockouts on October 11th, live on DAZN. Catterall, 31-2 with 13 knockouts, was left unsatisfied by an anticlimactic ending to his welterweight debut against Harlem Eubank on July 5th. Ending a second into the 7th round after both were cut by accidental head clashes and Catterall not deemed fit to continue. Essuman has won 3 straight since an upset points loss to Harry Scaff saw him lose the British Commonwealth and IBF European titles on November of 2023 2 years ago. Chief among them was a career-best scalp of Catterall's former rival, Josh Taylor, in Glasgow on May 24th, after which the former undisputed 140-pound champion announced his retirement. After Catterall parted ways with his former trainers on September 3rd, the longtime contender thanked his best friends Moore and Travis for their 9-year-long partnership and expressed gratitude at headlining his home city 3 times in consecutive bouts. Now campaigning at 147 during an uncertain time for the division's elite, the 13-year pro believes he needed a change of scenery to achieve his long-held world title aspirations. Back in May, Catterall told The Ring about spending a couple of weeks stateside and how beneficial it was learning in a new environment. Where Jack's change of decorum is different to most fighters wait until they lose a fight to change their decorum, get a new corner. Where Jack isn't coming off a loss, he's coming off a technical decision. He's coming off a win over a then unbeaten Harlem Eubank. It was good to break the rhythm of driving to the gym in Manchester every day, go out there and spar in different gyms, learn new things, keep growing and keep learning. You never stop learning, so to go out there on my own, no coaches, so to speak, you put yourself under a bit of pressure on the back foot going to someone else's gym. It's their gym. You're going in there for sparring, but it's nice to feel so uncomfortable. That's how you grow. Putting yourself in those positions, and it worked for me. I met some great people, learned a lot, and I've come home feeling revitalized, re-energized, and ready to kick on. I mean, sometimes it's just what it does for you psychologically, you know? Of course, different trainers have different training philosophies, and there is an added benefit to that, but there is also a psychological benefit that you know you're trying your best because you're exiting your comfort zone and everything you know to learn everything you don't. And it's not because he got his ass kicked. It's not because he lost. Jack isn't coming off a loss. He's coming off a win, which is different from what you see in most corner changes. Because this usually happens when a fighter is coming off a loss, a lot of the time it reads as if they are inadvertently blaming the trainer in search of greener pastures, where Jack doesn't appear to be blaming anybody, and he left Jamie Moore and Nigel Travis On amicable terms, he thanked them for everything they'd done in the 9 years they worked together, but he wants to learn more than they can give him.
Then they can teach him.
You've got different eyes watching you. Obviously want to show out and look good. I was fortunate to spar a lot of top talent out there. It's good that you've got different people watching, giving advice and tips like a college degree, going away, putting yourself on the back foot, and keep learning. Besides the headline attraction and his son Jaron, Bozy's stable has multiple world champions based in Philly, including two-weight world champion Stephen Fulton. Fulton, who faces WBC 130-pound champion O'Shaquie Foster on the Sebastian Fundora versus Keith Thurman undercard come October 25th, spoke about adding a different side to his game when asked about Bozy before his repeat win over Brandon Figueroa this past February. Having Bozy will add to my game, he said. He has a different eye for things. I have a really strong corner, and it's going to help me out. I can see that Figueroa is trying to work on some new things like his head movement and trying to box a little bit more. None of that helped the Mexican-American's case as Fulton outboxed him in a slow-burning affair to be crowned the WBC featherweight champion. Unsatisfied with the limited unification options at his disposal, now he's chasing Foster's junior lightweight crown. IBF and IBO World Junior middleweight champion O'Shea Jones and surging lightweight contender Andy Cruz are among the unbeaten names who also feature in Bozy's ranks, as the 69-year-old has received early consideration for Trainer of the Year acclaim.
Bozy's 69?
God bless him. And he's going to be training Jack Catterall moving forward, who seems excited to change his ambiance, his decorum. Perhaps now is the right time, competing as a welterweight.
There are certain fights you know off top he's not gonna get. He's not gonna get his crack at the apple with Mario Barrios, who's still on the PBC side, or Rolly Romero, who's rumored to be facing Manny Pacquiao at the end of this year.
I feel like his best bet at fighting for an alphabet title in today's welterweight division would have to be against newly crowned IBF champion Lewis Crocker, who just defeated Paddy Donovan in what was their rematch for the vacant title. That is a title that is within proximity. But first, Jack has to beat Echo Essuman
on what is a very big show, a very big card, at least across the pond, the undercard of Eubank versus Ben 2.
The rest of Jack Catterall's career and his career aspirations are on the other side of that Echo Essuman fight. Let's see what he learns.
Let's see what tricks he picks up in a city of brotherly love,
as boxing's Oscar Isaac enlists the aid of Bozy Ennis. Over to Jaron Ennis, who wants to put on a show in his upcoming fight against Lima. Jaron Ennis is looking to announce his presence at junior middleweight in emphatic fashion this upcoming 11th. Ennis will step up to 154 pounds for the first time in his career to face Lima in a WBA title eliminator at Xfinity Mobile Arena in Philly on DAZN. A win would put Ennis on the doorstep of either a world title shot or a huge fight against interim WBC junior middleweight title holder Virgil Ortiz early next year on DAZN. Me personally, I wouldn't hold my breath for Ortiz versus Ennis at the start of next year. I don't think that's the trajectory that Golden Boy Promotions has for Virgil.
I wouldn't hold my breath for that fight to happen in the near future.
I'm ready to make a big statement in 154-pound division, Ennis said on Matchroom's Flash Knockdown podcast. With the extra 7 pounds, I'm feeling great. Every time I want to put on a better performance.
Well, hopefully now he can. That he's not boiling all the way down to 147, the industry standard. You've got a lot of guys that walk around with a lot of weight boiling down,
killing themselves
to fight at weights that are not healthy for them, all to try to gain some sort of a size advantage over their opponents. But because so many guys in the industry are doing it, is it an advantage?
Virgil Ortiz, 23-0 with 21 KOs, has business of his own to tend to when he faces Erickson Lubricant on November 8th at the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. Ennis, 34-0 with 30 KOs, became the unified welterweight champion in his last outing, a dominating 6th-round stoppage of Amontes Stanionis this past April in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Ennis, 28, became the Ring Magazine, IBF, and WBA welterweight champion, but opted to move up to 154 after the win, largely because of difficulties getting down to 147. Ennis is already ranked number 1 by the WBA and WBC, number 2 by the WBO, and number 6 by way of the IBF at junior middle, one of the deepest divisions in boxing. Should the switch-hitting power puncher from Philly emerge victorious against Lima 14-1 with 10 knockouts, he'll likely be the mandatory challenger for newly crowned WBA champion Abbas Baraou, 17-1 with 9 knockouts next. Baraou won the interim title with a thrilling unanimous decision win over previously unbeaten Ioannis Tellez on August 23rd in Orlando. The German was then elevated to full champion once Terence Crawford, who previously held the WBA title, stepped into the ring to face Canelo this past September 13th.
Not mentioned in this article is that the newly crowned WBA champion Abbas Baraou announced his free agency, and if Eddie Hearn wants to strike while the iron is hot, now is the time. Up until recently, Abbas Baraou was promoted by Sauerland Promotions. That's Cali and Nisei Sauerland.
In a recent interview, Abbas Baraou mentioned that he's a free agent and he's keeping his options open. He wants the big fights. Abbas Baraou versus Boots Ennis could be a big fight, bigger than the Tellez fight,
the one he just had.
Potentially signing to Matchroom makes a Baraou versus Boots fight that much easier to make, as in that scenario, it would be an in-house affair. Don't know if there's been any dialogue between Abbas Baraou and Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, but we'll see.
So a lot of moving parts. We'll see what Baraou does, and at the moment, Boots has got to get past Lima, who he knows he can't look past.
What I've seen with Lima, he comes forward and throws a lot of punches, Ennis said. Whatever he brings, I'll be ready. My mindset that I've picked up is that every fight needs to be locked in. I'm treating him like a big game. Lima has won 3 consecutive fights since suffering his lone career defeat, a one-sided unanimous decision against undefeated middleweight contender Aaron McKenna in June of 2023, 2 years ago. Each of those victories came against undefeated fighters, the latest of which was a 9th-round stoppage of Shervonte Koopman on May 31st in South Africa. Lima of Luanda, Angola, will be fighting in the United States for the first time when he faces Ennis. A statement is a knockout, Ennis said. The main goal is to have fun, put on a show. As long as I look good, there's nothing to worry about.
So when you're fighting an unheralded opponent, an opponent that most boxing fans really don't know, even hardcore boxing fans, the least you can do is beat the guy decisively, knock him out.
And because this is Jaron Ennis' junior middleweight debut, there is some emphasis on being able to knock a guy out, to see if the power from one weight carries up to another, because it doesn't always. I mean, look at Teofimo. He was a knockout puncher at 135, but he doesn't really knock people out anymore at 140.
It's not a one-size-fits-all answer whether or not a fighter's power will carry, because where Teofimo's power didn't seem to carry through the weights, Inoue did, Crawford's did.
So maybe Boots' power will too? We'll see. That's the point. That's why there's some emphasis on Boots finishing and finishing strong. We'll see if he can. And as stated, I'm not holding my breath for Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz to fight early next year. Push comes to shove, I don't think Golden Boy Promotions want that. I think if Boots beats Lima, Matchroom is going to move into an Abbas Baraou fight.
Once they see that Virgil Ortiz fight ain't happening, it ain't going to come into fruition, at least not in the near future, they will push for his world title opportunity.
And in the meantime, we're going to have to see who Abbas Baraou goes to. Does he go to Matchroom? Does he go to somebody else? Does he stay a free agent into early next year? These are questions that are going to need answers.
Over to Virgil Ortiz, who is motivated to look good in victory, respects Erickson Lubin threat. Erickson Lubricant isn't some journeyman looking for a paycheck and an easy way out. Virgil Ortiz knows he's hungry and determined, so while he understands why he's the favorite, it'll be anything but an easy night on November 8th at the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas. He has intellect, experience, and power, Ortiz said during their first press conference.
He likes to fight. I've seen his fights before. He legitimately goes in there to fight people. I respect that about him. Over the last few years, Ortiz's admiration for Lubricant, 27-2 with 19 knockouts, has only increased. With the 29-year-old on a 3-fight winning streak, he feels like he's just entering his prime. But no matter how impressive Lubricant has looked recently, arguably no junior middleweight contender has put together a run quite like the current interim WBC junior middleweight title holder. Ortiz, 27, beat then top 5 contender Sergey Boachuk in August of last year before following that fight of the year contender 6 months later with a disciplined win over perennial contender and former WBA champion Israel Madrimov. Those victories placed him firmly on the map in his third weight class, though Lubin is of that ilk, if not higher. Ortiz needs to be on his A-game, and even that might not be enough. Returning from a hand injury, Ortiz, 23-0 with 21 KOs, expects to raise his game a few levels to beat Lubin and move on to bigger matchups. I'm very motivated, Ortiz said. I want to win and look good doing it. Being in the ring with someone of Erickson Lubin's pedigree just motivates me to train harder.
So, listen, it's good that Virgil respects his opponent, because what would be disrespectful is looking past him and taking the victory for granted. Not taking the guy seriously. That's what would be disrespectful. And it's good that Virgil respects the man in front of him. I don't hate this fight for Virgil. The reason I don't hate this fight for Virgil is because in some ways, it is a litmus test. Erickson Lubin has been in there with Jermel Charlo, been in there with Sebastian Fundora, Jesus Ramos, seasoned guys in the junior middleweight division, where I feel like Virgil is still making his bones. Even though he's been there for 4 fights, only 2 of those guys were legitimate junior middleweights. The other 2, those were layups.
Now there is a legitimate argument that given Virgil Ortiz's age, 27 years old, he should have fought for a title by now. We know he's had some medical issues, but we also know that he's been WBC interim champion for a little over a year now, applying next to no pressure on Sebastian Fundora. So even if medical issues stifled his welterweight campaign, you're at junior middleweight now, you've been there for over a year, and you're not putting any pressure on Sebastian. How do I know? Sebastian's fighting Keith Thurman in a voluntary title defense when yours is mandatory, and you're fighting Erickson Lubin.
At what point do you call Mauricio up and tell him to order the fight? Do you not want it?
So this is where the argument stems from, that Virgil should be fighting for a title right now, and he's not. But in spite of that, I don't hate the Lubin fight. I don't hate the fight.
It's not terrible.
A part of me wants to see how he handles this assignment with Erickson Lubricant, who's been at this weight for years, been there and done that with some fighters, won some fights, lost some fights. He's a southpaw, like Virgil is a southpaw.
I remember that Jermel Charlo knocked him out 35 seconds into the first round off a peach of an uppercut. I remember that Sebastian Fundora beat him up pretty bad, rearranged his face, the swelling. It was grotesque.
I remember. And now I want to see if Virgil can put forward a performance like those guys did. Can he do what they did? Can he do it better? I do want to see how he handles himself against this guy, because he's been kind of up and down his last 2 fights. I don't actually think he beat Sergey Boachuk, but he definitely beat Israel Madrimov. What does he look like with Lubin?
We'll see.